Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a real head-scratcher today. How could a scientist, a man devoted to logic and reason, dedicate himself to studying ghosts? It's the puzzle of Sir William Crookes, a giant in 19th century science who, along with his breakthroughs in chemistry and physics, fearlessly explored the world of seances and mediums.
What's so intriguing is that Crookes wasn't some outsider. He was a celebrated scientist, a discoverer of elements, an inventor who laid the groundwork for technologies we still depend on. Yet he was drawn to the mysteries of the unseen, the possibility of a world beyond our senses.
It's almost like two separate worlds colliding, right?
Yeah.
On one hand, the meticulous scientist analyzing the material world, and on the other, the brave explorer delving to the realm of spirits. How do we reconcile these seemingly conflicting paths?
Well, to understand Crookes' journey into the paranormal, we need to grasp the depth of his scientific accomplishments, his early work, truly revolutionary. Take his discovery of thallium, for instance.
Not just another name on the periodic table, was it?
No, it was like finding a missing piece of the puzzle of matter itself.
Right. Uncovering the secrets of the very building blocks of our world. And on the topic of uncovering secrets, he also pioneered spectroscopy. It's like a chemical fingerprint, isn't it?
Exactly. And we still use it today to identify the composition of stars light years away or even the tiniest traces of substances in a forensic investigation.
Incredible. And then there's his invention that truly changed everything. The Crookes tube.
Hard to imagine, but this early ancestor of the cathode ray tube led to the screens were glued to TVs, computers, smartphones, a direct line from his lab to our living rooms.
It's astounding to think about his impact on our technological world. And there's this fitting aphorism about Crookes. Ubi Crookes ibi lux. Where there's Crookes, there's light. Seems almost prophetic considering his later work with the spirit world.
It does, doesn't it? But before we delve into the shadowy world of seances and mediums, we have to understand the cultural setting of Crookes' time. Picture Europe and America in the mid-1800s. Spiritualism was sweeping through society like wildfire.
Seances were the talk of the town, right?
They were. Mediums claimed to channel messages from beyond the grave. The public was both captivated and a bit terrified.
It was a time of immense social and scientific change, too. Darwin's theory of evolution was shaking the foundations of religious belief, and the Industrial Revolution was transforming society at an unbelievable pace. Maybe people were seeking answers, solace, in a world changing too quickly.
It was the perfect breeding ground for spiritualism. And while the public was enthralled, the scientific community remained largely skeptical.
Saw it as superstition or just plain fraud?
Yeah, pretty much. But Crookes, with his scientific curiosity and commitment to truth-seeking, decided to investigate.
He felt an obligation to apply his scientific rigor to these claims, even if they seemed far-fetched. And what's interesting is that he initially approached it with a good deal of skepticism.
Oh, absolutely. He fully expected to debunk the whole thing.
He wasn't setting out to prove the existence of spirits.
No, he was approaching it as a scientist would, looking for evidence, for rational explanations. He even thought he might expose the tricks behind these so-called paranormal phenomena.
And at first, the scientific community applauded his efforts, right? They saw him as the one to finally expose the charlatans and put an end to this spiritualist frenzy.
Right. Little did they know. That's where Crookes' meticulous side really kicks in. From 1870 to 1874, he carried out some of the most rigorous, controlled investigations into spiritual phenomena ever attempted. He wasn't playing around with dimly lit parlors and spooky theatrics.
So same level of scientific rigor as with thallium or spectroscopy.
Absolutely. Seances in his own home, carefully chosen witnesses, using scientific instruments to measure and record everything. He even used photography. Remember, this is the Victorian era, long before Photoshop and special effects.
So what kind of phenomena were we talking about here, and any specific mediums he worked with?
Crookes investigated a whole range: table turning, spirit rapping, levitation, ghostly lights, even the materialization of spirit forms. He worked with some of the most famous mediums of the day, like Kate Fox.
One of the Fox sisters.
That's right. They were pioneers of the spiritualist movement. He also worked with Florence Cook and Daniel Douglas-Home, big names in the world of seances.
Sounds like he was covering all the bases, trying to understand the full spectrum of these reported phenomena. So after years of these intense investigations, what were his conclusions? Did he find anything?
Well, in 1874, Crookes published his findings in the Quarterly Journal of Science, a highly respected scientific publication.
So a pretty big deal. What did he say?
His conclusion: some phenomena he witnessed were genuine, couldn't be explained by trickery or illusion. He detailed the meticulous controls, the instruments he used, the independent observations, and argued that fraud simply couldn't account for what he'd seen.
Wow, talk about a bombshell. How did the scientific community react? I can't imagine they were too thrilled.
You're right. Despite his meticulous methods, they largely rejected his findings. They couldn't reconcile the idea of a spirit world with their materialist worldview. It challenged their fundamental assumptions about reality itself.
So more than skepticism about the methodology, it was a clash of worldviews, a fundamental disagreement about what could even be considered a legitimate subject of scientific inquiry.
Precisely. A paradigm shift many in the scientific establishment just weren't ready for. Crookes's reputation took a hit, his report was dismissed, some even called for his expulsion from the Royal Society.
Like the ultimate scientific diss.
It must have been incredibly isolating to be ostracized by his peers.
Were there any scientists who supported his work, though? Any allies in this?
He did find some, yeah. Interestingly, Alfred Russel Wallace, the co-discoverer of evolution, was one. And Sir Oliver Lodge, a pioneer in radio technology, also found Crookes's work compelling. So even within the scientific establishment, there were cracks in the wall of skepticism.
Fascinating that some of the most brilliant minds of the time were open to these ideas. But of all of Crookes's investigations, the one that really captured the public's imagination and caused the most controversy was his work with a materialized spirit called Katie King.
Ah, yes. The Katie King case is where Crookes's research takes a truly fascinating turn. Katie King was supposedly the spirit of a deceased woman, materialized through the mediumship of Florence Cook, just a teenager at the time. Crookes conducted these seances under extremely controlled conditions.
What kind of conditions?
Sometimes even in complete darkness, to allow for the formation of ectoplasm, the substance from which spirits were thought to manifest.
I have to admit, this is where I start to get a bit skeptical. Complete darkness. How could he be sure what was happening?
Oh, he anticipated that. That's why he also held seances under red light, which was dim enough for the supposed ectoplasm to form, but bright enough for some visibility. And during those sessions, Crookes, his family, other witnesses, reported seeing Katie King emerge, fully formed, sometimes even having conversations.
So people were actually seeing this materialized spirit. Did she look like Florence Cook, the medium, like some kind of clever disguise?
That's the thing. Multiple witnesses described Katie King as being taller than Cook, different facial features, hair, skin. And here's where it gets really interesting. There were times when both Katie King and Florence Cook were reportedly visible at the same time.
Wait, so they were both visible at the same time. That kind of rules out Cook just impersonating Katie King, right?
Unless she had a secret twin sister hiding in the seance room, the impersonation theory becomes pretty far-fetched.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Do we have any first-hand accounts from Crookes himself describing these encounters with Katie King?
We do. Crookes documented everything meticulously, as you might expect. He describes Katie King walking around, interacting with guests, even holding one of Crookes' own children. Imagine that. A renowned scientist witnessing a materialized spirit interacting with his family created a sensation, both among spiritualists who saw it as confirmation and in the scientific community where it fueled even more controversy.
It's hard to even imagine what it must have been like for Crookes to experience these things firsthand, especially given his scientific background. So after this whole Katie King phenomenon, did he ever waver in his belief in the reality of spirits?
He never did. Seems like he doubled down, actually. After all the criticism and ridicule, he still stood by his findings. It takes a certain kind of conviction, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Crookes remained unwavering in his belief in the reality of spiritual phenomena for the rest of his life.
He did. In fact, he went on to publish more books and articles on the subject, like Researches on the Phenomena of Spiritualism, where he laid out his findings in even greater detail.
So this wasn't just some passing interest for him. This was a lifelong pursuit.
It was an attempt to reconcile his scientific worldview with these extraordinary experiences.
And what's even more remarkable, he used his platform as a respected scientist to advocate for further research into these phenomena. Can you imagine? In 1898, as the president of the British Association for the Advancement of Science, he gave a speech where he reiterated his belief in a connection between this world and the next.
To stand before his peers, many of whom had dismissed his work, and declare his belief in the spirit world. That's incredibly bold.
It really is. It speaks to his integrity and his commitment to following the evidence wherever it led him.
It does. And think about the implications of his work. If Crookes, a scientist of his stature, could embrace these ideas, What does that tell us about the potential for scientific exploration? Beyond the material world, I mean.
It really makes you wonder if we've been too quick to dismiss certain phenomena just because they don't fit into our current scientific paradigms.
That's a good question. How might Crookes' investigations have influenced our understanding of consciousness and the nature of reality today?
Even though they were controversial.
Yes, very much so. Perhaps he was a pioneer, venturing into uncharted territory, paving the way for future scientists to explore the mysteries of the human mind. And the potential for reality is beyond our current understanding.
It's exciting to think about how his work might be viewed in the future. Perhaps one day, the things he explored will no longer be seen as paranormal, but simply as another aspect of the natural world that we're just beginning to grasp.
It's certainly possible. After all, many scientific ideas that were once considered radical or even heretical have become accepted facts over time.
Right, maybe Crookes' work will be seen as a precursor to a more expansive view of reality, one that encompasses both the material and the immaterial.
Interesting thought.
Well, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the life and work of Sir William Crookes. It's been a fascinating journey into the world of 19th century science, the rise of spiritualism, and the enduring mysteries of the human mind.
A pleasure exploring these intriguing questions with you. Crookes' story is a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge can take us down unexpected paths, and that sometimes the most groundbreaking discoveries lie in the realm of the unknown.
And for all of you listening, remember that the world is full of mysteries. And the spirit of scientific inquiry is all about asking questions, challenging assumptions, and being open to the possibility that there's more to discover than we can currently imagine. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.